The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with low conversations as representatives from dozens of species gathered for what many considered a routine meeting. Ambassador Zeftar of the Kethari Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes and glanced around the vast circular hall. The Kethari were known throughout the galaxy for their advanced biotechnology and their rigid social hierarchies based on fertility rates. As one of the most powerful civilizations in the local cluster, they rarely paid attention to the smaller, newer species that occasionally petitioned for membership. That changed when the human delegation walked in. The humans were an oddity that had appeared seemingly overnight in galactic politics. Their homeworld, Earth, had been discovered only 3 standard cycles ago, yet they had somehow managed to develop faster-than-light travel and establish several colonies. Most species took centuries to achieve such technological leaps. The Kethari scientific community was baffled, but not particularly concerned. After all, technological advancement meant little without the biological foundation to support a growing civilization. Dr. Sarah Chun led the human delegation, her modest appearance contrasting sharply with the elaborate displays of the other species. Behind her walked 5 other humans, all looking remarkably similar in their simple, dark uniforms. The Kethari ambassador noticed something immediately. The humans appeared to be in various stages of what his species would consider advanced age, yet they moved with surprising vigor. Honored representatives, Dr. Chen began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. Humanity respectfully requests consideration for associate membership in the Galactic Union. A ripple of polite interest moved through the assembly. New species applications were common enough, though few succeeded on their first attempt. The process typically involved demonstrating technological capability, cultural stability, and, most importantly for many species, reproductive sustainability. Ambassador Zeftar activated his speaking crystal. Dr. Chun of the human delegation, we acknowledge your request. However, preliminary reports about your species raise certain concerns. Our xenobiologists indicate that human reproductive cycles are unusually slow and inefficient. Your females carry offspring for nearly 10 standard months, typically producing only 1 or 2 young per cycle. This suggests a species in decline. Murmurs of agreement came from several delegations. The Crystalline Veltari representative chimed in with their harmonic voice. Our data shows human lifespans averaging less than 100 cycles. How does your species maintain population stability with such limitations? Dr. Chen smiled, and something in that expression made Ambassador Zeftar pause. It wasn't the desperate smile of a species begging for help, nor the proud defiance of a species refusing to admit weakness. It was something else entirely, something almost amused. Ambassador Zeftar, honored representatives, she replied, I believe there may be some misunderstandings in your data. Perhaps we should arrange a more detailed cultural exchange. The Kethari ambassador felt a flicker of curiosity. In his experience, struggling species either became defensive or pleaded their case desperately. The humans seemed remarkably calm about what should have been devastating criticisms of their biological viability. Very well, he said. The Empire would be willing to host a delegation on Kethari Prime. However, I must warn you that our customs regarding reproduction and fertility are central to our society. Your delegation may find some aspects uncomfortable. Dr. Chen's smile widened slightly. We appreciate the warning, Ambassador. I think you'll find humans are quite adaptable. 3 weeks later, the human delegation arrived at Kethari Prime, the crown jewel of the Empire. The planet was a showcase of biotechnological marvels, living buildings that grew from engineered seeds, atmospheric processors that were actually massive symbiotic organisms, and transportation systems based on domesticated creatures that could phase shift through solid matter. Ambassador Zeftar personally met the humans at the spaceport, accompanied by his daughter, Princess Awarendra. The princess was a source of great sorrow for the ambassador. Despite being of prime breeding age and possessing the finest genetic markers of their lineage, she had failed to conceive after dozens of attempts with the most genetically compatible males of their species. In Kethari society, this made her essentially worthless as a potential leader, despite her brilliant mind and natural diplomatic skills. Welcome to Kethari Prime, the ambassador said formally. May I present my daughter, Princess Elwirandra, who will serve as your cultural liaison during your stay. Dr. Chen stepped forward and, to everyone's surprise, bowed deeply in the traditional Cathari greeting. Your Highness, we are honored by your attention. Princess Elwirandra returned the bow, studying the humans with barely concealed curiosity. Like most of her species, she stood nearly 3 meters tall, with the characteristic blue-tinted skin and elongated limbs of the Cathari. Her cranial ridge was particularly pronounced, indicating high intelligence, and the golden threadwork in her robes marked her royal status. Dr. Chun, she said in fluent galactic standard, your species intrigues us. Our preliminary studies suggest certain biological limitations, yet your rapid technological advancement indicates significant potential. We hope to understand this apparent contradiction. As they traveled through the capital city, Dr. Chun and her team observed everything with keen interest. They asked detailed questions about Cathari reproduction, social structure, and the biological technologies that formed the foundation of their civilization. What struck Princess Elwirandra as odd was that the humans seemed particularly interested in their fertility enhancement programs and genetic optimization procedures. Your Highness, Dr. Chun said during their first formal dinner, your people have achieved remarkable things in biological engineering. Yet I notice a certain melancholy in your society. Many of your citizens seem concerned about something. Princess Elwirandra exchanged a glance with her father. It was true. Despite their technological achievements, Cathari society was increasingly worried about their declining birth rates. Even with all their genetic enhancements and fertility treatments, fewer and fewer Cathari were successfully reproducing. Our scientists believe it may be a natural cycle, the princess said carefully. Advanced civilizations sometimes experience temporary declines in reproductive success. Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. And I suppose the social pressure must be intense for those who cannot conceive. The question hung in the air like a blade. In Cathari society, fertility was everything. Social status, political power, even basic respect all flowed from one's ability to produce offspring. Princess Elwirandra felt the familiar sting of shame and fought to keep her expression neutral. Indeed, she said quietly, those who cannot fulfill their biological purpose often find themselves marginalized. How terribly sad, Dr. Chen said, and her voice carried genuine sympathy. On Earth, we learned long ago that a person's worth isn't determined by their reproductive capacity. Some of our greatest leaders, scientists, and artists never had children of their own. Ambassador Zeftar leaned forward. His interest piqued despite himself. How does your species maintain social cohesion without fertility-based hierarchies? Surely the drive to reproduce is fundamental to any successful civilization. Dr. Chun smiled that same mysterious smile from the council chamber. Ambassador, what would you say if I told you that human civilization actually became more successful after we stopped obsessing over individual reproductive capacity? I would say that seems biologically impossible, he replied. Then, perhaps, Dr. Chen said, setting down her eating utensil, we should show you rather than tell you. The next morning, Princess Elwirandra found herself in the royal gardens with Dr. Chun and 2 other members of the human delegation, Dr. James Rodriguez and Dr. Amara Okafor. They had requested a private meeting away from the formal protocols and recording devices that monitored most diplomatic exchanges. Your Highness, Dr. Chen began, before we continue our discussions, I think there's something you should know about human reproduction and society. Princess Elwirandra braced herself for another lecture about the biological limitations that made humanity a poor candidate for galactic membership. Instead, Dr. Chen reached in her travel pack and withdrew a small device that projected a holographic display. The image showed a group of humans, dozens of them, ranging from very young to quite elderly. This is my family, Dr. Chun said simply. Princess Elwirandra studied the projection. Your offspring? But there are so many, and the age ranges suggest multiple generations. How is this possible with your slow reproductive cycles? Dr. Rodriguez laughed, and the sound was warm and genuine. Dr. Chun never had any biological children, Your Highness. The princess stared at him in confusion. I don't understand. In human society, Dr. Okafor explained, family isn't just about genetic relationships. These are people Dr. Chun has mentored, taught, supported, and loved throughout her career as a scientist and educator. She's helped raise dozens of children whose biological parents couldn't care for them. She's guided young scientists who went on to make breakthrough discoveries. She's been a grandmother figure to children whose own grandparents lived too far away. Princess Elwyrandra felt something shift in her understanding. But without biological offspring, how does she maintain her status? Her legacy? Dr. Chun gestured to the hologram, which now showed images of scientific papers, laboratories, and technological innovations. My legacy is in the knowledge I've shared, the lives I've touched, and the problems I've helped solve. 3 of the people in that first image went on to develop our faster-than-light drive. 2 others created the medical technologies that extended our lifespans. 1 became the architect who designed our first off-world colonies. But the genetic contribution, Princess Elwyrandra began, then stopped. She was beginning to see something that challenged everything her society had taught her. Your Highness, Dr. Rodriguez said gently, may I ask you a personal question? What contributions have you made to your society beyond your reproductive attempts? The question should have been insulting, but something in his tone made it feel like genuine curiosity. Princess Elwyrandra found herself answering honestly. I've designed 3 of our most important atmospheric processors. I created the diplomatic protocols that ended the border dispute with the Veltari. I've been working on a new form of biotechnology that could revolutionize our agricultural systems. She paused, realizing how much she had accomplished despite being considered a failure by her society standards. And yet, Dr. Okafor observed, your people consider you unsuccessful because you haven't reproduced? Princess Elwyrandra felt tears forming in her large, violet eyes. Yes, all of my achievements mean nothing if I cannot carry on the royal bloodline. Dr. Chun stepped closer, her expression kind, but serious. Your Highness, I'm going to tell you something that might sound impossible, but I want you to think about what you've observed about humans since we arrived. The princess nodded, wiping away her tears with the back of her hand. Humanity's greatest period of growth and achievement began when we stopped measuring people's worth by their ability to have children. When we started recognizing that everyone has unique gifts to contribute, regardless of their reproductive status, our entire civilization flourished. But how? Princess Elwyrandra asked. How do you maintain genetic diversity? How do you ensure the continuation of important bloodlines? Dr. Rodriguez smiled. We learned that genetic diversity comes from mixing many different lineages, not preserving individual ones. And we discovered that the most important things we pass to future generations aren't genetic at all. They're knowledge, values, culture, and wisdom. As they talked, Princess Elwyrandra began to see her own society through new eyes. The obsession with individual fertility had actually created a rigid caste system that wasted enormous amounts of talent. Brilliant minds like her own were dismissed because they couldn't reproduce, while less capable individuals were elevated simply because they had many offspring. There's something else, Dr. Chun said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Something we haven't told the galactic community yet, because we weren't sure how they would react. Princess Elwyrandra leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her diplomatic training. The reason human civilization advanced so rapidly isn't despite our reproductive limitations. It's because of how we adapted to them. We learned to create artificial families, to share child-rearing responsibilities across entire communities, and to value every individual's contribution regardless of their genetic legacy. Dr. Okafor nodded. But more than that, we discovered something that your xenobiologists missed in their preliminary scans. She activated a medical scanner and pointed it at Dr. Chun. The readings that appeared made Princess Elwyrandra gasp in shock. According to the device, Dr. Chun was not just pregnant. She was carrying multiple offspring, and the biological markers suggested she was in perfect health despite being well past what the Cathari considered reproductive age. How is this possible? Princess Lirandra breathed. Dr. Chin's mysterious smile returned. Your Highness, I think it's time we showed you exactly what humans have learned about reproduction, family, and the true meaning of fertility. Princess Elwyrandra stared at the medical readings in disbelief. The scanner showed impossible results. Dr. Chun appeared to be carrying what the Kethari would consider a full clutch of offspring, yet she showed no signs of the physical strain that such a pregnancy should cause. Even more puzzling, the readings indicated that all 3 humans present were somehow connected to the same reproductive event. "I need to sit down," the princess said weakly, her long legs folding as she sank onto a nearby garden bench carved from living coral. Dr. Chun exchanged glances with her colleagues before sitting beside the princess. "Your Highness, what if I told you that those readings are completely accurate, but not in the way your people understand reproduction?" "That makes no sense," Princess Elwarandra replied, her scientific mind struggling to process the contradictory information. "Either you're pregnant or you're not. Either the offspring are genetically yours or they aren't." Dr. Rodriguez activated his own scanner and ran it over himself. The readings showed similar impossible results. He appeared to be both male and actively gestating offspring. "Your Highness, human reproduction evolved far beyond simple biological processes centuries ago." Princess Elwarandra looked from one human to another, her violet eyes wide with confusion and growing excitement. As a xenobiologist herself, she had studied dozens of species' reproductive methods, but nothing had prepared her for this. "Please," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Explain." Dr. Okafor pulled up a holographic display that showed a complex network of interconnected biological and technological systems. "What your scanners are detecting isn't pregnancy in the traditional sense. They're reading the neural and genetic patterns of our collective child-rearing network." "You're what?" Dr. Chen leaned forward, her expression growing more serious. "Your Highness, humanity discovered something remarkable about 500 Earth years ago. We learned that reproduction isn't just about creating new genetic combinations. It's about creating new minds, new perspectives, new solutions to problems we haven't even encountered yet." The hologram shifted, showing what appeared to be a vast, interconnected web of human minds linked by streams of light. "We developed technology that allows us to share the experience of raising children across entire communities," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "When a child is born anywhere in our network, everyone connected to that network experiences aspects of their development. We share the joy, the learning, the growth, and, yes, even the challenges." Princess Elwarandra's scientific training kicked in, overriding her emotional shock. That's impossible. You're describing some form of collective consciousness, but humans are clearly individuals." "Not collective consciousness," Dr. Okafor corrected. "Collective responsibility and shared experience. We remain individuals, but we've learned to share the most important task any species faces, preparing the next generation for challenges we can't imagine." The princess studied the hologram more closely. "These connections, they're technological?" "Partly," Dr. Chen said, "but also biological, psychological, and social. We learned that human children develop better when they have access to dozens of adult role models, teachers, and caregivers. Instead of placing the entire burden on 1 or 2 biological parents, we spread that responsibility across communities." But the scanner readings, Princess Elwarandra protested. "They show active gestation." Dr. Rodriguez smiled. "Because in a sense, we are gestating. Right now, there are 47 human children being born across our colonies. Every adult in our network is contributing to their development through shared knowledge, emotional support, and resource allocation. Your scanner interprets that connection as a form of pregnancy because, in terms of neural activity and biological investment, that's essentially what it is." Princess Elwarandra felt her worldview shifting like tectonic plates. Everything her society had taught her about reproduction, family, and biological worth was being challenged by these strange aliens who treated parenthood as a community effort rather than an individual achievement. "How does this work in practice?" she asked, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her cultural conditioning. Dr. Chun activated another holographic display, this one showing a human settlement. "Let me show you New Geneva, one of our newer colonies. The settlement has about 12,000 residents. At any given time, roughly 300 children are in various stages of development, from newborns to teenagers preparing for their adult roles." The display zoomed in to show the daily life of the colony. Children moved freely between different family units, learning from various adults based on their interests and aptitudes. A child fascinated by engineering might spend mornings with the colony's technical specialists, afternoons with artists learning creative problem-solving, and evenings with historians understanding how past solutions could inform future challenges. Every adult in the colony is responsible for every child, Dr. Okafor explained. Biological parents have special roles, of course, but they're not solely responsible for their offspring's development. Instead, children are raised by the entire community, with different adults contributing their unique skills and knowledge. Princess Elwyrandra watched in fascination as the hologram showed a typical day. She saw children moving seamlessly between learning environments, adults sharing teaching responsibilities, and family structures that extended far beyond genetic relationships. But what about genetic lineage? She asked. How do you maintain bloodlines and hereditary traits? Dr. Rodriguez laughed gently. Your Highness, we discovered that genetic diversity is more important than preserving specific lineages. Our children benefit from having genetic material from many different human populations. We've eliminated most hereditary diseases and actually strengthened our species by encouraging genetic mixing rather than genetic purity. More importantly, Dr. Chen added, we learned that the most valuable things we pass to our children aren't genetic at all. Knowledge, values, creativity, problem-solving skills, emotional intelligence. These things are transmitted culturally, not biologically. Princess Elwyrandra was quiet for several minutes, processing what she had learned. Finally, she looked up at the humans with a mixture of awe and sadness. Your system sounds wonderful, but it would never work for the Cathari. Our entire civilization is built around individual genetic achievement and hereditary status. People like me, we'd have no place in such a society. Dr. Okafor's expression grew gentle but firm. Your Highness, with respect, I think you're wrong about that. In human society, someone with your intelligence, creativity, and diplomatic skills would be incredibly valuable. The fact that you can't reproduce biologically would be completely irrelevant. But how can you be certain? Princess Elwyrandra asked. Dr. Chen smiled. Because some of our most important leaders and innovators have been people who couldn't or chose not to have biological children. They channeled their nurturing instincts into mentoring others, solving problems, and building better communities. She activated her personal communicator and spoke briefly in what Princess Elwyrandra recognized as one of Earth's primary languages. A few moments later, the air shimmered and a holographic figure appeared, an elderly human woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. Your Highness, Dr. Chen said, I'd like you to meet Dr. Elena Vasquez, one of the most respected leaders in human space. The hologram spoke, and the translation system rendered her words in Cathari. Princess Elwyrandra, I'm honored to meet you. I understand you're learning about human reproduction and family structures. Dr. Vasquez has never had biological children, Dr. Rodriguez explained. She was born with a genetic condition that made natural reproduction impossible. But she's been a mother to thousands of human children across dozens of colonies. Princess Elwyrandra stared at the holographic figure. Thousands? Dr. Vasquez nodded. I developed the educational protocols used in all our colonies. I've personally mentored over 600 young scientists and engineers. I created the psychological support systems that help human children adapt to life on alien worlds. In our society, I'm considered one of the most successful parents in history. But you never carried offspring yourself? Never. And it's never been seen as a limitation. My contributions to human development go far beyond what any individual biological parent could achieve. Princess Elwyrandra felt tears forming again, but this time they weren't tears of shame. They were tears of possibility, of hope for a future she had never imagined. Dr. Vasquez, she said quietly, how did you find your purpose when your society told you that reproduction was impossible? The elderly woman's expression grew thoughtful. Your Highness, I had to learn that my worth wasn't determined by my biological functions, but by what I could contribute to the well-being and development of my species. It wasn't easy at first, but once I understood that parenthood is about nurturing growth and potential rather than just creating genetic copies, everything changed. After the holographic communication ended, Princess Elwyrandra sat in silence for a long time. The humans waited patiently, understanding that she was processing concepts that challenged the fundamental assumptions of her society. Finally, she looked up at Dr. Chen. If what you're saying is true, then my entire civilization has been wasting enormous potential. Brilliant individuals are being marginalized, while less capable people are elevated simply because of their reproductive success. That's exactly what happened to us, Dr. Chen said. For thousands of years, human societies were organized around bloodlines, inheritance, and reproductive success. It led to enormous waste of human potential and countless injustices. What changed? Dr. Rodriguez smiled. We realized that survival isn't about preserving individual genetic lines. It's about preserving and improving the accumulated knowledge and wisdom of our entire species. When we started organizing society around that principle instead of around reproductive hierarchies, everything improved. Princess Elwyrandra stood up slowly, her mind racing with possibilities. Dr. Chun, what would happen if a Kethari wanted to join your reproductive network? Could someone like me participate in your child-rearing system? The question hung in the air like a challenge to everything both species thought they understood about biology, culture, and the meaning of family. Dr. Chen's smile was radiant. Your Highness, that's exactly what we were hoping you would ask. Dr. Okafor pulled up another holographic display, this one showing technical specifications for what appeared to be sophisticated biotechnology. We've been working on something we call the Universal Child-Rearing Network. It's designed to allow different species to participate in shared child development, regardless of their individual reproductive capabilities. Princess Elwyrandra studied the technical diagrams with growing excitement. As a biotechnology specialist herself, she could see the elegant complexity of the system. It would allow individuals to contribute their knowledge, emotional support, and resources to child development across species boundaries. This is revolutionary, she breathed. If this technology works, it could transform not just human society, but galactic civilization itself. It does work, Dr. Chen said quietly. And Princess Elwyrandra, we'd like you to be the first non-human to join the network. The princess stared at them in shock. You want me to help raise human children? Not just human children, Dr. Rodriguez explained. We're hoping to help establish similar networks for other species. Children who grow up with exposure to multiple species knowledge and perspectives would be better prepared for the challenges of an interconnected galaxy. Princess Elwyrandra felt her heart racing. The possibility of participating in child-rearing, of contributing to the next generation's development, of finding purpose beyond her reproductive failures. It was everything she had dreamed of but never thought possible. What would be required? She asked. Dr. Okafor smiled. Just your willingness to share your knowledge, your time, and your care with young minds eager to learn. Your expertise in biotechnology, your diplomatic experience, your understanding of different cultures, all of that would be invaluable to developing children. Princess Elwyrandra closed her eyes, imagining what it would feel like to nurture young minds, to watch them grow and develop, to know that she was contributing to their future success. When she opened her eyes, her decision was clear. How do we begin? The integration process began immediately. Dr. Chun led Princess Elwyrandra to a private medical facility that the human delegation had quietly established in their diplomatic quarters. The princess was amazed to discover that what appeared to be simple guest accommodations actually contained sophisticated biotechnology that rivaled anything in the Kethari Empire. The first step, Dr. Okafor explained as she prepared the neural interface equipment, is establishing a baseline connection to our child-rearing network. This will allow you to experience what it feels like to be connected to developing young minds. Princess Elwyrandra lay on what looked like an ordinary medical couch, but she could feel the subtle vibrations of advanced scanning and interface technology. Will this change me permanently? It will change your perspective permanently, Dr. Rodriguez said with a smile. The technology itself can be reversed at any time, but most people find that once they experience true community-based child-rearing, they never want to go back to isolated parenting. As the neural interface activated, Princess Elwyrandra gasped. Suddenly, she could feel the presence of dozens of young minds, human children scattered across multiple star systems, all learning, growing, and exploring their universe with boundless curiosity. She could sense their questions, their discoveries, their small triumphs, and minor frustrations. More than that, she could feel the network of adults supporting them. Teachers sharing knowledge, counselors offering emotional support, engineers showing them how things worked, artists helping them express creativity. It was like being part of a vast, warm, nurturing organism dedicated to the single purpose of helping children become the best possible versions of themselves. "This is incredible," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I can feel them learning. I can sense their potential." Dr. Chen monitored the princess's neural activity on a nearby display. "How do you feel about sharing some of your own knowledge with them?" Princess Lyra didn't hesitate. She opened her mind to the network and began sharing her expertise in biotechnology, her understanding of diplomatic protocols, her knowledge of Cathari culture and history. She felt the children's excitement as they encountered new concepts, their delight in learning about alien perspectives they had never imagined. Within hours, young human minds were asking questions about bioengineered architecture, symbiotic technology, and the complex social structures of the Cathari Empire. Princess Lyra found herself explaining concepts she had never thought to share, seeing her own knowledge through fresh eyes as curious children explored ideas that adults often took for granted. "Look at this," Dr. Rodriguez said, pointing to his scanner readings. "Your neural activity is showing the same patterns we see in our most experienced community parents. You're not just connected to the network, you're actively nurturing it." But the most remarkable change came 3 days later, when Princess Lyra woke up feeling different in a way she couldn't immediately identify. As she prepared for another day of sharing knowledge with the human children, she realized that the familiar ache of failure and worthlessness that had plagued her for years was gone. In its place was a warm sense of purpose and belonging that she had never experienced before. Dr. Chen found her in the garden that morning, surrounded by holographic displays showing the progress of various children in the network. The princess was simultaneously helping a young engineer understand the mathematics behind symbiotic architecture, encouraging a budding diplomat working through a complex cultural exchange scenario, and reviewing the creative writing of a child who was crafting stories about alien worlds. "How do you feel?" Dr. Chun asked gently. Princess Lyra looked up with an expression of wonder. "I feel like a mother. Not the way my society defines motherhood, but the way it should be, nurturing, supporting, helping young minds grow into their full potential." "And the children? How do they respond to you?" The princess smiled, a gesture that transformed her entire face. "They love learning about my world. 3 of them are already developing biotechnology concepts that could benefit both our species. One young artist is creating amazing works inspired by Cathari cultural forms. And several are asking if they can visit our world someday to see our living cities." Dr. Chin nodded, pleased but not surprised. "Your Highness, there's something else we need to discuss. Your father has been asking questions about your activities. I think he's noticed a change in your demeanor." Indeed, Ambassador Zeftar had been watching his daughter with growing puzzlement. For the first time in years, Princess Lyra seemed genuinely happy. She moved with new energy, spoke with confidence, and radiated a sense of purpose that had been absent since her reproductive failures began. He found himself torn between curiosity and concern. That evening, he requested a private meeting with the human delegation. "Dr. Chun," he said formally, "I must ask directly, what have you done to my daughter?" The question could have been accusatory, but his tone suggested genuine concern rather than anger. Dr. Chin gestured for him to sit in the comfortable chairs arranged in their meeting room. "Ambassador, we've given her the opportunity to be a parent." Zeftar's expression darkened. "Do not mock our family's pain. My daughter's reproductive limitations are a source of great suffering." "I'm not mocking anything," Dr. Chin replied seriously. "I'm telling you that your daughter is currently helping to raise 47 human children scattered across multiple star systems. She's teaching them about biotechnology, diplomacy, and Cathari culture. They adore her, and she's discovering talents as an educator and mentor that she never knew she possessed." The ambassador stared at her in confusion. "That's impossible. Humans cannot reproduce with Cathari. The genetic incompatibility is complete." Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward. "Ambassador, you're thinking about reproduction in purely biological terms. We're talking about something far more sophisticated, the deliberate cultivation of young minds, and their integration into a supportive community of caring adults. I don't understand. Dr. Okafor activated a holographic display showing Princess Elwirandra's current activities in the child-rearing network. The ambassador watched in amazement as his daughter simultaneously interacted with dozens of human children, answering their questions, guiding their learning, and celebrating their achievements. Your daughter is experiencing what we call distributed parenthood, Dr. Chen explained. She's contributing her knowledge, wisdom, and emotional support to children who desperately need adult guidance. In return, she's experiencing the joy and fulfillment that comes from watching young minds develop and grow. Ambassador Zeftar watched the display for several minutes, seeing his daughter more animated and engaged than he had witnessed in years. But these are not her offspring. How can this satisfy parental instincts? Because parental instincts aren't really about genetic relationships, Dr. Rodriguez said gently. They're about nurturing the next generation, helping them develop their potential, and ensuring the continuation of knowledge and wisdom. Your daughter is doing all of that. The ambassador was quiet for a long time, processing concepts that challenged fundamental assumptions of Cathari society. Finally, he looked up at Dr. Chan with a mixture of hope and skepticism. Even if what you say is true, this changes nothing for our civilization. Our social structures, our political systems, our entire culture is built around reproductive success. One individual adopting alien practices cannot reform an entire empire. Dr. Chen smiled. Ambassador, what if I told you that's not entirely accurate? She activated another display, this one showing communications logs and data streams that the ambassador didn't immediately recognize. What am I looking at? He asked. Reports from other Cathari who have been quietly observing our cultural exchange. Word about your daughter's transformation has spread throughout your diplomatic corps, your scientific community, and even your royal court. The display showed dozens of messages from Cathari citizens asking about the human approach to child-rearing, family structures, and social organization. Scientists were requesting detailed information about the biotechnology behind the network. Diplomats were wondering if similar systems could be established for their species. Even members of the royal family were expressing curiosity about alternatives to their fertility-based hierarchy. More importantly, Dr. Okafor added, we've been in contact with representatives from 14 other species in the galactic community. All of them are dealing with similar problems, declining birth rates, social systems that waste individual potential, and increasing difficulty maintaining population stability. Ambassador Zeftar felt a chill of recognition. The Cathari were not alone in their reproductive struggles. Across the galaxy, advanced civilizations were discovering that traditional approaches to family and child-rearing were becoming inadequate for the challenges of interstellar societies. What are you proposing? He asked quietly. Dr. Chen leaned back in her chair, her expression serious. We're proposing a fundamental shift in how galactic civilization thinks about reproduction, family, and social organization. Instead of competing over individual genetic success, species could cooperate to ensure the best possible development for all children. A galactic child-rearing network. The ambassador's voice carried a mixture of awe and disbelief. Exactly. Imagine children growing up with access to the knowledge and wisdom of dozens of species. Imagine social systems that value every individual's potential contribution rather than just their reproductive capacity. Imagine civilizations that grow stronger through cooperation rather than genetic competition. Ambassador Zeftar stood and walked to the window overlooking the capital city of Cathari Prime. Below him, millions of his people went about their daily lives, many of them struggling with the same sense of failure and worthlessness that had plagued his daughter. The rigid social hierarchy that had once seemed natural and necessary suddenly appeared arbitrary and cruel. If such a system were possible, he said slowly, what would happen to traditional family structures? To genetic inheritance? To the social bonds that hold our civilizations together? Dr. Rodriguez joined him at the window. They would evolve into something better. Stronger family bonds based on choice and commitment rather than just genetics. Social structures that reward talent and contribution rather than reproductive success. Civilizations that measure their success by how well they prepare their children for unknown challenges rather than how purely they preserve their genetic lines. The ambassador was quiet for several minutes, watching the city below. Finally, he turned back to the humans. "Show me," he said. "Show me how this would work for the Kethari." Dr. Chen smiled. "We were hoping you would ask. Princess Elwarandra has been working with our technicians to design a pilot program specifically adapted for Kethari biology and culture. She thinks it could transform your entire civilization." "My daughter designed this?" "Your daughter," Dr. Okafor said proudly, "has turned out to be one of the most innovative minds we've encountered. Her insights into cross-species child development are already revolutionizing our approach to galactic education." Ambassador Zeftar felt a surge of pride unlike anything he had experienced since Princess Elwarandra's birth. His daughter, whom society had written off as a failure, was pioneering concepts that could reshape galactic civilization. "When can we begin implementation?" he asked. "Tomorrow," Dr. Chen replied. "If you're willing, we'd like to start with a small group of Kethari volunteers, individuals who have struggled with reproductive challenges but possess valuable knowledge and skills." The ambassador nodded slowly. "I believe I can identify suitable candidates." As the meeting concluded, Ambassador Zeftar realized that the humans had given him something he had thought impossible: hope for his daughter's future and, perhaps more importantly, hope for a civilization that had forgotten how to value the potential of every individual. The next morning, Princess Elwarandra stood before a group of 12 Kethari volunteers, all of them individuals who had been marginalized by their society's obsession with reproductive success. They included scientists, artists, engineers, philosophers, and teachers, brilliant minds whose contributions had been undervalued simply because they couldn't produce offspring. "My friends," she said, her voice clear and confident, "today we begin a new chapter in Kethari history. Today we learn what it truly means to be parents." The transformation began with just 12 Kethari volunteers, but within weeks, the ripple effects were spreading throughout their entire civilization. The neural interface technology, adapted for Kethari physiology by Princess Elwarandra and the human technical team, allowed each volunteer to connect with developing young minds across multiple species. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Dr. Kethlon, a biotechnology researcher who had been relegated to minor projects due to his reproductive failures, found himself mentoring young humans who were fascinated by symbiotic architecture. His innovative approaches to living buildings captured their imaginations, and soon they were developing hybrid concepts that combined human engineering principles with Kethari biological integration. Scientist Valera, who had been dismissed from her position at the Imperial Academy after failing to conceive for 20 cycles, discovered a gift for explaining complex mathematical concepts to children from multiple species. Her teaching methods were so effective that young minds that had struggled with advanced mathematics were suddenly grasping principles that typically took years to master. Artist Mordeth, whose creative works had been ignored because he couldn't contribute to the genetic legacy of his family line, began working with human children to create entirely new art forms that blended Kethari sensory experiences with human emotional expression. His pieces were so revolutionary that they caught the attention of galleries across human space. But perhaps the most significant change was in the volunteers themselves. The constant sense of failure and social rejection that had defined their lives began to fade, replaced by a deep sense of purpose and belonging. They were no longer the outcasts of Kethari society. They were pioneers in a new form of civilization. Princess Elwarandra documented everything, compiling detailed reports on the psychological, social, and practical benefits of the expanded child-rearing network. Her data was compelling, but she knew that changing an entire civilization would require more than just statistics. It would require a demonstration that even the most traditional Kethari couldn't ignore. The opportunity came when the Galactic Council announced its annual symposium on emerging technologies. Representatives from hundreds of species would gather to share innovations and discuss challenges facing interstellar civilizations. It was the perfect venue to reveal what humanity and their new Kethari partners had accomplished. Ambassador Zeftar requested permission to make a special presentation, titling it simply New Approaches to Civilizational Sustainability. The council, always interested in solutions to the reproductive and social challenges facing many species, agreed to give him a prominent speaking slot. 3 days before the symposium, Princess Elwarendra made a request that shocked everyone, including her father. "I want to address the council directly," she announced during a planning meeting with the human delegation. Ambassador Zeftar's expression showed his concern. "Daughter, you know that would be highly irregular. As someone who has not contributed to our genetic legacy, your standing to speak before such a gathering is questionable." Princess Elwarendra smiled, and her father was struck again by how much she had changed. The bitter, defeated young woman he remembered had been replaced by someone radiating confidence and purpose. "Father, I am about to demonstrate that I have contributed more to our species' future than any individual in Kethari history. I think that earns me the right to speak." Dr. Chun looked intrigued. "Your Highness, what do you have in mind?" "I'm going to show them the children." The day of the symposium, the great assembly hall of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from across known space. The crystalline Veltari chimed softly in their reserved section. The massive Grinth delegates tested the structural integrity of their specially reinforced seating, and dozens of other species filled the vast chamber with a symphony of different languages, communication methods, and cultural displays. Ambassador Zeftar took the podium, his ceremonial robes marking his status as a representative of one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. He began with traditional diplomatic language, acknowledging the various delegations and expressing gratitude for the opportunity to address such a distinguished gathering. But then his tone changed. "Honored representatives," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "I stand before you today not just as an ambassador of the Kethari Empire, but as the father of a daughter who has revolutionized our understanding of what it means to nurture the next generation." A ripple of interest moved through the assembly. Personal references were unusual in such formal presentations. "My daughter, Princess Elwarendra, was considered a failure by our society's standards. She could not reproduce biologically, and in our culture, this made her essentially worthless despite her brilliant mind and innovative spirit." The chamber grew very quiet. Such honest discussion of personal failure was unprecedented in galactic diplomatic circles. "I am here to tell you that our society was wrong. Not just wrong, but catastrophically wrong in ways that have weakened our civilization and wasted immeasurable potential." Ambassador Zeftar gestured, and Princess Elwarendra rose from her seat in the diplomatic section. As she walked toward the podium, every representative in the chamber could see the dramatic change in her bearing. Gone was the defeated posture of a social outcast. In its place was the confident stride of someone who knew exactly what she had accomplished. "Honored representatives," Princess Elwarendra said as she took the podium, "6 months ago, I was a barren female with no place in Kethari society and no hope for the future. Today, I am the mother of over 300 children across 6 different species." The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs and startled exclamations. Several delegates activated their translation devices, convinced they had misheard. I say this not as metaphor or exaggeration, but as literal truth. I am actively involved in raising, teaching, and nurturing over 300 young minds, and they're all thriving under my care. Princess Elwarendra activated the chamber's main display system, and suddenly, the space filled with holographic images of children from multiple species. Human children working on biotechnology projects inspired by Kethari designs. Young Veltari learning to create harmonic compositions that incorporated Kethari cultural themes. Grinth juveniles developing new approaches to environmental engineering based on symbiotic principles. "These children represent the future of galactic civilization," she continued. "They're growing up with exposure to knowledge and perspectives from multiple species. They're learning to think beyond the limitations of their own cultures while still appreciating their unique heritage." The display shifted to show the learning networks that connected children across vast distances, allowing them to share discoveries, collaborate on projects, and support each other's development in ways that no single species could provide. More importantly, Princess Elwarendra said, her voice growing stronger, they're being raised by communities that value every adult's potential contribution, regardless of their reproductive capacity. Scientists who cannot bear children are teaching young minds about the universe. Artists who will never pass on their genes are inspiring creativity in the next generation. Philosophers who cannot continue their bloodlines are helping young people understand their place in the cosmos. She paused, letting the implications sink in. What we have discovered is that reproduction and child-rearing are not the same thing. Reproduction creates new genetic combinations. Child-rearing creates new minds capable of solving problems we cannot imagine. The most successful civilizations will be those that excel at the latter, regardless of their limitations in the former. The chamber was completely silent now, representatives from dozens of species absorbing concepts that challenge fundamental assumptions about civilization, family, and biological purpose. Honored representatives, Princess Oarendra continued, I invite you to observe the practical results of this approach. The holographic display shifted again, this time showing comparative data on child development, educational outcomes, and innovation rates. The results were undeniable. Children raised in the expanded network showed superior performance across virtually every measure of intellectual, emotional, and social development. These children are learning faster, thinking more creatively, and developing stronger emotional resilience than their peers raised in traditional family structures. They are becoming the kind of individuals who will be capable of addressing the challenges facing all our civilizations. Dr. Chen had been watching from the human delegation section, and she felt a surge of pride as Princess Elwarendra commanded the attention of the galaxy's most powerful representatives. The nervous, defeated alien princess had become a confident leader articulating a vision that could transform interstellar civilization. But, perhaps most importantly, Princess Elwarendra said, her voice carrying a note of triumph, we have proven that biological reproduction is not the measure of an individual's worth or potential contribution. Every mind has value. Every perspective has merit. Every individual can contribute to the success of the next generation. She gestured to her father. Ambassador Zeftar has requested permission to establish formal pilot programs between the Kethari Empire and 12 other civilizations represented here today. We are prepared to share our technology, our methods, and our results with any species interested in exploring new approaches to child development and social organization. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Representatives from dozens of species activated their communication systems, requesting priority meetings with the Kethari delegation. The crystalline Veltari chimed excitedly in harmonic patterns that indicated extreme interest. The massive Grinth delegates rumbled their approval in subsonic frequencies that vibrated through the chamber floor. But the most significant response came from an unexpected source. Supreme Chancellor Morgeth of the Hegemony Coalition rose from his seat. The Chancellor was known throughout the galaxy as a conservative traditionalist who had spent centuries defending rigid social hierarchies based on genetic fitness and reproductive success. Princess Elwarendra, he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who spoke for 1,000 worlds, the hegemony has struggled with declining birth rates for over 2 centuries. Our most brilliant scientists, our most innovative artists, our most capable leaders have been marginalized because they could not contribute to genetic lineages. He paused, and when he continued, his voice carried a note of something that might have been hope. If what you describe is possible, if individuals can find purpose and fulfillment beyond biological reproduction, if civilizations can grow stronger by valuing every mind rather than just fertile ones, then you may have discovered the key to ensuring the survival of advanced civilizations. Princess Elwarendra felt tears forming in her violet eyes. The Supreme Chancellor commanded the respect of hundreds of species. His endorsement could legitimize the new approach across a significant portion of the galaxy. Your Excellence, she replied, we would be honored to work with the hegemony to adapt our methods for your member species. As the formal session concluded and representatives began arranging private meetings, Ambassador Zeftar found himself surrounded by colleagues who had previously dismissed his daughter as a genetic failure. Now, they were eager to learn from her innovations and to explore how their own civilizations might benefit from expanded child-rearing networks. Dr. Chen approached Princess Elwarendra as she finished speaking with a group of scientific representatives from the Spiral Alliance. Your Highness, she said quietly, You've just changed galactic history. Princess Elwarandra smiled, and in that expression was the joy of someone who had found not just personal fulfillment, but a way to help others discover their own potential. No, she replied. We've just given the galaxy permission to value every mind, regardless of whether it can create new bodies. The real change starts when civilizations begin implementing these ideas on a massive scale. As delegations dispersed to begin planning sessions that would reshape their societies, Princess Elwarandra realized that her personal transformation had become something much larger. What had begun as one alien princess learning to find purpose beyond reproductive failure had evolved into a movement that could redefine what it meant to be a successful civilization. The irony was not lost on her. The barren princess had become the mother of a galactic revolution. 5 years after the Galactic Council Symposium, the transformation of interstellar civilization was nothing short of revolutionary. What had begun as a desperate attempt by humanity to find acceptance in galactic society had evolved into a fundamental reimagining of how advanced civilizations approach child-rearing, social organization, and individual worth. Princess Elwarandra stood on the observation deck of the newest addition to Kethari Prime, the Galactic Child Development Center, a living building that grew from the planet's surface like an enormous flower. Its bioengineered walls pulsed gently with the rhythms of life, and its chambers were designed to accommodate children and educators from dozens of different species. Through the transparent biomembrane windows, she could see young beings of various species working together on projects that would have been impossible just a few years earlier. Human children collaborated with Kethari juveniles to design new forms of symbiotic architecture. Young Veltari worked with Grenth adolescents to create musical compositions that incorporated both harmonic and seismic elements. Most remarkably, children from species that had been enemies for centuries were learning to understand and appreciate each other's perspectives. "The morning reports, Your Majesty," said Advisor Kethlon, approaching with a data tablet that glowed with bioluminescent displays. Princess Elwarandra accepted the title with grace, though she still sometimes marveled at how completely her life had changed. When the Kethari nobility realized that their failed princess had become one of the most influential figures in galactic society, they had quickly restructured their succession laws to prioritize intellectual and social contribution over reproductive capacity. Elwarandra was now heir to the Kethari throne, and her eventual reign was anticipated as the beginning of a new golden age for their civilization. "What do the reports show?" she asked, though she already suspected the answer would be positive. Every month brought new evidence of the success of the expanded child-rearing networks. "Remarkable progress across all metrics," Kethlon replied, his voice carrying the satisfaction of a scientist observing successful experimental results. "Educational advancement rates have increased by 300% among children in the integrated networks. Innovation indices are at historical highs. Most significantly, psychological wellness scores indicate that children raised in multi-species environments show greater emotional resilience and creative problem-solving abilities than any previous generation." Princess Elwarandra nodded, pleased but not surprised. The data had been consistently positive since the pilot programs began. What amazed her was how quickly the networks had grown. "How many children are currently in the integrated programs?" she asked. Kethlon consulted his tablet. "As of this morning, over 14 million young beings across 43 species are participating in various forms of expanded child-rearing networks. The growth rate continues to accelerate as more civilizations see the results and adapt the technology for their own populations." 14 million children. Princess Elwarandra thought about her own journey from social outcast to galactic leader, and she marveled at how a single alien's personal transformation had created opportunities for millions of young minds to reach their full potential. Her communicator chimed with an incoming priority message. The holographic image that appeared was immediately recognizable. Dr. Sarah Chun, now serving as Earth's primary ambassador to the Galactic Union and one of Princess Elwarandra's closest advisors. "Your Majesty," Dr. Chun said, her image flickering slightly due to the vast distance between their locations, "I have news that I think you'll want to hear immediately." "Good news, I hope." Dr. Chen's smile was radiant. The Hegemony Coalition has just announced that they're implementing universal child-rearing networks across all their member worlds. Supreme Chancellor Morgoth is calling it the most important social innovation in their history. Princess Elwarandra felt a surge of triumph. The Hegemony Coalition represented over 1,000 worlds and dozens of species. Their full adoption of the expanded child-rearing model would legitimize the approach across a significant portion of the galaxy. There's more, Dr. Chun continued. The Chancellor specifically requested that you oversee the implementation process. He wants to offer you a formal position as Director of Galactic Child Development for the Coalition. The offer was staggering. The position would make Princess Elwarandra one of the most powerful individuals in known space, responsible for the education and development of billions of children across multiple civilizations. Dr. Chun, she said quietly, 5 years ago I was considered worthless by my own society. Now you're telling me that 1,000 worlds want me to help raise their children. Your Majesty, you've proven that worth isn't determined by reproductive capacity, but by the ability to nurture and develop potential. In the 5 years since our first meeting, you've become one of the most effective child development specialists in galactic history. Princess Elwarandra looked out at the children working in the center below her. They represented dozens of species, countless different biological and cultural backgrounds, yet they were learning to collaborate, to share knowledge, and to solve problems together in ways that their parents' generations never could. I accept the position, she said without hesitation. Dr. Chin's holographic image showed her relief and excitement. Excellent. The Chancellor wants to meet with you next week to begin planning the implementation. This is going to transform galactic civilization. After the communication ended, Princess Elwarandra remained on the observation deck, watching the children and thinking about the broader implications of what they had achieved. The expanded child-rearing networks were more than just an alternative to traditional family structures. They represented a fundamental shift in how advanced civilizations thought about individual worth, social organization, and the meaning of success. Advisor Kethlon joined her at the window. Your Majesty, if I may ask a personal question? Of course. Do you ever regret not having biological children of your own? Princess Elwarandra considered the question seriously. There had been a time when her reproductive failures defined her entire sense of self-worth. The pain of that period seemed almost surreal now, like a nightmare from someone else's life. Kethlon, she said finally, I have over 3 million children now. I watched them take their first steps into understanding mathematics, science, art, and philosophy. I've comforted them when they faced challenges, celebrated their achievements, and helped guide them toward their own unique potentials. I've experienced motherhood on a scale that no biological parent could imagine. She gestured toward the children below. More than that, I've helped create a system where every adult can experience the joy of nurturing young minds, regardless of their biological limitations. Millions of individuals who were marginalized by their societies have found purpose and fulfillment as educators, mentors, and guides. The old system wasted so much potential. The old system was based on fear, Princess Elwarandra replied. Fear that genetic lines would be lost, that bloodlines wouldn't continue, that individuals who couldn't reproduce were somehow failing their species. We've learned that the most important things we pass to future generations aren't genetic at all. They're knowledge, wisdom, values, and the capacity for growth. Her communicator chimed again, this time with a message from the center's education coordinators. A group of human and Kethari children working on a joint project had made an unexpected breakthrough in biotechnology that could revolutionize food production across multiple worlds. The innovation had emerged from their unique perspective as young minds educated in both human engineering principles and Kethari biological systems. Your Majesty, Kethlon said after reviewing the report, these children are already solving problems that defeated previous generations of specialists. Princess Lirandra smiled. That's exactly what we hope would happen. Children who grow up with exposure to multiple species knowledge and perspectives develop cognitive abilities that surpass what any single culture could produce. As the day progressed, Princess Elwarandra moved through the center, interacting with children, educators, and researchers. She observed a philosophy discussion where young beings from 6 different species explored concepts of ethics and consciousness. She watched an art class where children created works that blended aesthetic traditions from across the galaxy. She participated in a science seminar where juveniles presented research projects that challenged fundamental assumptions about physics, biology, and technology. Each interaction reinforced her conviction that they had discovered something revolutionary. The expanded child-rearing networks weren't just producing better educated children. They were creating a new type of galactic citizen, one capable of thinking beyond the limitations of species-specific cultures while still appreciating their unique heritage. That evening, Princess Elwyrandra attended a formal dinner celebrating the 5th anniversary of the first successful multi-species child-rearing integration. Representatives from the original 12 Kethari volunteers were present, along with human delegation members who had made the initial breakthrough possible. Dr. Chun gave a toast that captured the magnitude of what they had achieved. 5 years ago, she said, raising her glass of synthesized Kethari ceremonial wine, we were a species desperate for acceptance, trying to convince a skeptical galaxy that humanity belonged among the stars. Today, we're part of a revolutionary movement that's transforming how advanced civilizations nurture their most precious resource, the minds of their children. She turned toward Princess Elwyrandra. Your Majesty, you began this journey as someone society had written off as a failure. You've become the architect of a new form of civilization that values every mind and provides every individual with the opportunity to contribute to the future. Princess Elwyrandra stood to respond, feeling the weight of her transformation and the responsibility it carried. Friends, colleagues, fellow parents, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. We gather tonight not just to celebrate our successes, but to acknowledge how much our understanding of family, worth, and civilization has evolved. She paused, looking around the room at individuals who had all been transformed by their participation in the expanded child-rearing networks. We've learned that being a parent isn't about passing on genetic material. It's about passing on wisdom, knowledge, and the capacity for growth. We've discovered that the strongest families aren't necessarily those bound by blood, but those united by commitment to nurturing young minds. Most importantly, we've proven that the most successful civilizations are those that value every individual's potential to contribute to the next generation. The applause that followed was warm and sustained, but Princess Elwyrandra held up her hand to continue. As I prepare to take on new responsibilities with the Hegemony Coalition, I want you all to remember that we're not just changing how children are raised. We're changing what it means to be a successful species in an interconnected galaxy. We're proving that cooperation, inclusion, and shared responsibility produce better results than competition, exclusion, and individual achievement. She raised her glass to the children who will inherit the stars, and to all the adults who have discovered that their worth isn't determined by their biology, but by their willingness to nurture the future. As the evening concluded, Princess Elwyrandra stood once again on the observation deck, looking out at the bioluminescent patterns that decorated Kethari Prime's skyline. In the distance, she could see the construction sites where new child development centers were growing, living buildings that would house the next generation of galactic citizens. Her personal communicator activated with a message from one of her first human students, now a young adult working as a biotechnology researcher on a frontier world. Dear Teacher Mother Elwyrandra, the message began, using the term that children in the network had developed for their most important mentors. I wanted to share some exciting news. My research team has just made a breakthrough in terraforming technology that combines human atmospheric engineering with Kethari symbiotic principles. None of this would have been possible without the multi-species education you provided during my childhood. Thank you for showing me that knowledge has no boundaries, and that the best solutions come from understanding many perspectives. Princess Elwyrandra felt tears forming in her violet eyes, but they were tears of joy and fulfillment. The young human researcher was just one of millions of children who had benefited from the expanded child-rearing networks, but his message represented the ultimate validation of everything they had worked to achieve. She thought about her father, Ambassador Zeftar, who had lived to see his failed daughter become one of the most respected leaders in galactic history, before passing peacefully the previous year. She thought about Dr. Chun and the human delegation who had taken an enormous risk by sharing their revolutionary approaches to family and child development. Most of all, she thought about the millions of adults across dozens of species who had discovered that their worth wasn't determined by their reproductive capacity, but by their ability to nurture young minds and guide them toward their full potential. The joke that had started it all, the galaxy's dismissive attitude toward humanity's supposedly inefficient reproduction, had indeed turned into awe. But not because humans had proven their biological superiority. Instead, they had demonstrated that true civilizational success came from valuing every mind, nurturing every potential, and creating communities where all individuals could contribute to the future regardless of their personal limitations. As Princess Lyra prepared to leave for her new position with the Hegemony Coalition, she knew that her greatest achievement wasn't her personal transformation from social outcast to galactic leader. Her greatest achievement was helping to create a universe where no child would ever be told they were worthless, and no adult would ever be marginalized for circumstances beyond their control. The infertile princess had become the mother of a new form of civilization, and the children of that civilization would inherit a galaxy where every mind mattered, every perspective had value, and every individual could find purpose in nurturing the future. In the end, that was the greatest joke of all. The species that the galaxy had dismissed for their reproductive limitations had taught everyone else what it truly meant to be fruitful and multiply. Not through biology, but through wisdom, compassion, and the recognition that the most important inheritance any generation could leave was not their genes, but their knowledge and their commitment to helping young minds reach their full potential.